you can't emotionally be so invested because you'll die. And with Alice, I died a little bit.
Hello, boils and ghouls. It's your old pal, John Cassier, the voice of the Crypt Keeper. And I want to welcome my good fiends of the Horror Heals podcast. Is horror good for mental wellness? But of course it is. I delight in the delicious deaths of pitiful people on the silver screen. So get ready for a hell of a good time with my new fiends, Corey and Kendall, on the Horror Heals podcast.
Welcome back to the Horror Heals podcast. Wow, that sounded like really radio voice, Corey. Oh my goodness. I'm one of your co-hosts, Corey Stoltz, along with my partner, Kendall Austin Stoltz. And today we continue our conversation with the legendary Adrienne King, the original Final Girl from Friday the 13th. In this episode, we explore Adrienne's artistic journey and how painting became a therapeutic outlet for her, allowing her to process past traumas, including her experiences with a real-life stalker. We also explore the power of community via the support and love Adrienne receives from her fans, whom she affectionately calls her campers, and how they've helped her heal. We discuss facing personal demons. Adrienne shares the challenges she faced after the abrupt and shocking exit of her character Alice from Friday the 13th Part 2. We also find strength in vulnerability. We talk about the importance of opening up about personal struggles and how doing so can inspire others to seek healing. New episodes of the Horror Heals podcast launch on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're actively looking for guests who can relate to our theme of horror and healing related to our mental wellness. Reach out to us via the Horror Heals website, horrorheals.com, or contact us via Instagram. Both are linked in the show notes. Okay, enough marketing. Let's get back to Adrienne King.
Alice and I have something in common. We're both artists, and my first passion has always been my art. I've done a couple of commissions, which are very cool. I'm finishing, actually, Alice in the Pantry right now.
Oh, wow.
Very cool.
Awesome.
My fans give me other things. They give me permission to spend time in my art studio creating fabulous paintings, I hope, because that is what I want. I want to be a great artist. And so now I'm really digging in and finding, I've painted all my life, but I never gave myself permission to really dig in and find my true self in my art, which is what I'm doing now. And that's a gift from my campers.
Yeah, I love that. If you're open to sharing some of your paintings with us, we would love to share them on our social.
They're on my website right now. I'm actually thinking about closing my website because I stopped my Crystal Lake wines. I put it on hiatus because of the series, which again was fine because I realized for 13 years I've been selling wine, and which I loved because it was my paintings on the label and it was all Friday the 13th related. So again, it was some way to keep Friday the 13th going since 2009, when we haven't really gotten anything except maybe the game, which they took away from us.
I know.
So it's okay. You know what? Crystal Lake's coming back. We don't need the wines. Boom. So now that time that took away from me is going into my art. So that's all good.
Love that.
Yeah.
Are you at peace with how they decided to take out Alice?
I'll never be at peace. That was just unnecessarily brutal. I never got a script. In retrospect, I trusted people who I thought were my friends, who I'm a trusting person. And you think, having been in the business, grown up as a child in the business and as a teenager, I would have learned, because sometimes the business can be tough, even on a kid, and I did learn. My mom, oh my God. So she said, you don't cry over this business, otherwise you're not in it anymore. It's a tough business. I'll give you one. So remember Dark Shadows?
Oh yeah, I love it.
when I was 16. So I'm in high school on split sessions. I finish school at noon. I take the Long Island Railroad into the city. I'm not kidding you. From ninth grade, I took the train into the city myself and auditioned and took my dance lessons and my singing lessons and my acting lessons. People thought this is crazy, but I come home with my dad on the train, so it was all good. But I was up for Dark Shadows, and it was callback and callback. I don't know if you remember the Kathy Cody part with she had the long, beautiful blonde hair. She was 16, right? I came down to the wire and I didn't get it. And so I was just pulverized. I was in my bathtub crying, and my mother heard me. She goes, "You are not going to survive this business if you're going to cry about everything you lose because it's a brutal business." And it is. And your heart is attached. So as an actor, you put everything into your auditions and you really want something. It's tough. So I learned my lesson at that point. You can't emotionally be so invested because you'll die. And with Alice, I died a little bit when she did, you know? And especially it was done, like I said, I'd never had a script. I had a stalker at the time, but no one was talking about stalkers. And I was advised not to let anyone know that I had a stalker because back then people blamed you for having that. You were the weak one for some reason who couldn't handle it. And it was Alice was a lot tougher than Adrienne is all I can say, because I was constantly looking over my shoulder. As a matter of fact, on my website, there's a painting called Stalking on 82nd Street that I paint. My art became my therapy, and I painted like a bag of masks because I would go outside and I wouldn't look like me and I put on different clothes and I would hide and I'd always be looking over my shoulder because I always felt like something someone or whatever. And when I went up there, I really did feel like whoever it was at that point didn't know still was with following me there. And then I get to the set and it's a skeleton crew in the last night of shooting. Unbeknownst to me, they'd already filmed the whole movie. And so I didn't know that. And no one was there, including the props master. That whole first dialogue was all improv. The director, whose name I don't mention, only because he hurt me, and I know he's very talented, but he was very inhumane for some reason, and all he needed from me was this one night, and he was gonna get it one way or the other, and he said, "Sit in that chair, and you're talking to your mom on the phone, go." So that I deserve writer's credit, talking to my mom and then the cat. And I always said it was a post-traumatic stress dream within a horrible nightmare because I know what post-traumatic stress is. I suffered it in 1980. I suffered it in 1990 after a plane crash. I know how serious post-traumatic stress can be. And so that is the story I stuck with because now I can get funny. I know that, first of all, Alice is a dog person, not a cat person. We were talking about our puppies. I also know that Alice would never have been caught dead in that Kelly Green outfit. Who thought that was a good idea? But to tell you the truth, I think what happened is when I told my mom or my reps who were handling everything for me, obviously did not communicate that I had some private issues going on. I think they thought I was pregnant. That's what I think, because I never had a wardrobe of fitting, you know what I mean? I had to try and figure this out over the past 40 years, like, what happened? And you go through it over and over in your mind. And like anybody who suffers a trauma, you go through everything like, what did I do wrong? What did I do to cause this horrible thing to happen to me? It's my fault. And we're programmed that way. And so it takes us a long time to figure out it had nothing to do with me. And it was another situation I had to survive on top of my stalker. So I didn't have, like I said, an entourage. I didn't have the Friday the 13th people in my corner for some reason. I don't know why, but it would have been really nice. And I couldn't count on them. Like I said, for some reason, I chose the wrong people to trust. Because when you're young, you just pray that the people you have in your life are going to protect you. So now I am surrounded by loving people and I feel very protected. And that's the message I want to give to your listeners is you're not alone. Maybe you're alone for a little while, but at some point you will find your family like you did.
Absolutely.
That is just such a heartwarming story.
Thank you.
It took that long to close that little gap of your heart.
It's not all rainbows and unicorns in my story, but that's okay. Okay. You know.
But nobody's is, right?
Right.
Who gets through this life unscathed? That's my question. I don't think anybody does.
And I think because I had such a good experience with my adoptive family,
Yeah.
that Corey did so much to try to warn me. Oh, it's so wonderful that we're going to find these people, but don't expect too much. I have a savior complex. So I'm like, I can fix this. You know what I mean? Any little thing that's going to go wrong and these new connections I can fix. Some things you can't. Like,
I do. I do. But we keep trying, don't we?
Absolutely.
There's something in our persona that says if there are just people who are caregiving people, there are people with just big hearts. And even though they may be kicked to the curb, that heart doesn't go away. It's still there. It's still there. It may take a while for it to trust again. But when you find the right person, like you found Corey, you guys are so fortunate. I can see what a special team you are, that you definitely have each other's back big time and encourage each other. And that's what the key is to find someone in this world that just accepts you for you.
Absolutely. We're definitely making lemonade out of lemon stuff because even though we've had the ups and downs with finding family, without it, we wouldn't have started the first podcast, Family Twist, which we've been embraced by the adoptee and DNA surprises and donor conception and not parent expected communities. And we love them. We love being part of that.
Inspirational. So fabulous that you're able to have that group. That's such a large group that's not spoken for.
You're right. And then being an entertainment journalist forever, being on the peripheral side of it, I've always been like horror and comedy are the two genres that I've always been drawn to as far as writing about. But then now creating this podcast and becoming part of the horror con community and like the greater horror communities, we're just so thrilled. It's just, and I love that we're approaching it from a healing perspective, because I think that's so important. I think that conversation needs to get bigger and bigger. And so thank you for coming on and being so open with your story. It's only going to inspire others to do the same.
Corey, I think it's a common denominator for all of us. I just think that we have to be kinder to each other. And I'm happy to say final girls do win. They fight and they win. May take them a little bit longer to get to where they're trying to get to, but like I said, eventually final girls do win. I'm here to show you it may take a long time, but we get there and we protect each other. And that's the key. That's the key. We have to be kind to each other. And I love that you are giving to a community. We all need healing. We all share that. Horror is an incredible genre. The people don't judge each other. We don't tear each other down. And if there's someone there, then they're not one of us. They don't belong to the horror genre because we heal from horror. There's some aspect of it that heals us. And it's the underdog thing, I believe. It's that we all feel like we can relate to at least one of the characters. So I love that you've been able to combine horror with the healing and reach an audience that really can benefit by your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think it's very, very special.
Appreciate that. So we have a final question that we ask every guest. But before I ask you, I was going to say, you know what? We need to find a clever screenwriter who is going to break this 15-year Friday the 13th new movie curse and find a way to bring Alice and Ginny together. But you know what? I think Kendall and I are going to tackle that. I think we're going to try to take on that story. So here is our final question, and it's very appropriate for a final girl. Who is your favorite final person in a horror movie?
Wow. There's the obvious, right?
Yes.
How about last year, Michael Verratti, the fabulous writer who I did Tales of Poe with, and now he's a great producer. He did the Fango Chainsaw Awards last year and invited me to give out the Best Female Actress, and I gave it to Mia Goth.
Oh, cool.
And it wasn't, which one was it for? It was the...
Probably Pearl.
Pearl. That's the one it was for. She's so fabulous. And so I'm going to say Mia Goth. How's that?
Our niece is about to turn 16 in November, and she has just started to embrace horror. And so we watched X together, and then she was the first one to say, but you've got to watch Pearl. So love that. And I bet she hasn't seen the original Friday the 30th. I love that she's starting to embrace horror, and that's another way for us to bond. In fact, she's going to be our Gen Z correspondent on the podcast.
I love that.
We've got really good vibes about this. We've been talking to the community over the last few months since we decided to launch this. They seem very excited about it. I feel like there's energy building around it. You've been such a treasure. Thank you so much. We love you. We love you.
Love you right back. Anytime. I love your shirt. I should have worn mine. But like I said, I didn't think this was on camera. And I'm glad I got to see your beautiful faces.
Thank you. Thank you.
Adrienne, thank you so much for sharing your powerful story with us. Your journey is a testament to the strength and resilience that so many of us find within the horror community. And for our listeners who found this conversation meaningful, I invite you to check out our other podcast, Family Twist. In Family Twist, we delve into personal stories of family, identity, and unexpected connections, much like the ones we've touched on today. You'll hear more about Kendall's incredible journey of discovering his birth family and the twists and turns along the way. Thank you all for tuning into Horror Heals. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Stay tuned for more inspiring stories where we explore how horror not only entertains, but also heals. And let's keep supporting each other because in the end, we're all survivors. And when someone questions, horror is healing, you tell them, of course it is. The Horror Heals podcast is produced and presented by How the Cow Ate the Cabbage, LLC.